Well, hello there, and welcome to this ship review featuring HMS Warspite, Rank 6 premium battleship. Now, as with all reviews that are posted on this channel, the various parts of this review are going to be timestamped down below, so if you don't really want to hear the, port section, I was going to call it a garage section, but we're in a port. If you don't want to hear the port section where we kind of pour over the statistics of the vessel or ship, the gameplays will be timestamped below, so feel free to skip to those, or if you're rushed, you can just skip to the final opinion, the is it worth it type section, and enjoy that. But if you want to stick around for the port portion of this review, let's get started. So HMS Warspite is obviously a British ship. She was launched in 1913 and served all the way until the end of the Second World War, where she was decommissioned in February 1945 and ultimately scrapped after a long ordeal in the 1950s. HMS Warspite was the most decorated ship in the British Navy for between both world wars. This ship saw it all, did it all, and when she was first commissioned was considered a fast battleship. She had the advantage of, instead of being armed with 14-inch guns, being armed with 15-inch guns, which equates to about 381 millimeters. Most ships at the time were armed with 14-inch guns. So that's a little bit of an advantage, and there's 8 of them on the ship, so there's a lot of firepower. But one of the key features was that this quote-unquote super dreadnought was given oil-fired boilers, which gave it a speed advantage over other dreadnought-class ships in the Royal Navy and kind of in the world. So it was able to boast a higher top speed while being loaded down with armor and heavy guns and heavily armored turrets and secondary batteries and all kinds of things, really good on battleships. So when this ship was first commissioned, it was a very potent threat, and throughout its entire service continued to be a very potent threat, and all the way until the latter stages of the Second World War, where technology had sort of advanced to the point where, eventually you can't just refit a ship, hundreds of times. It just becomes a point where you just need to build a new one. So Warspite was eventually limited to the the bombardment area of naval action, where, for example, the landings in Normandy, Warspite was there to deliver bombardment onto the beaches to pave the way for the invasion force, things like that. But it had its heyday, and we have it here in World of Warships as the first British ship available. And it's obviously a premium ship, which means that you have those benefits attached to premium ships, better rewards, you can train your commander, or your captain, I guess, and all those goodies. But let's look at what it looks like in the game in terms of armor and guns and whatever. So the first thing we'll talk about is survivability. Now, armor isn't listed anywhere I can find in this game, so I had to go to an external source to determine the actual armor thicknesses, because based on prior knowledge, I know the armor is very thick, and I was not disappointed. It has a health pool of 53,800 health, which puts it in the middle of the other two Rank 6 battleships, the USS New Mexico, which has the lowest health at 53,100, I believe. Yeah, 53,100. And the Fuso, which has 57,100 health. So it's significantly less than the Fuso, but it has some advantages over the Fuso and the New Mexico in its own respects. Warspite has a maximum armor thickness of 14 inches in the belt region, 13 inches in the turrets, and 12 inches on the conning tower. Now, based on these figures and what I could find of the other two Rank 6 battleships, Warspite has the most effective overall armor profile based on the resources I could come up with. Granted, armor profile of warships isn't a tremendously, what's the right word for it, discussed topic. There's not a ton of information that's easily available about how the armor profile of these ships work. Alright, hopefully we get that in later versions of World of Warships, where we can have a armor viewer, kind of like in War Thunder, where you can mouse over sections of armor and understand the thickness and things like that. But as it stands, based on the research I did, Warspite is probably the most heavily armored ship between the rank 6 battleships New Mexico and Fuso, and sits in the middle of health. So it's overall, the survivability of this ship, in addition to other factors, is very good. And that's kind of this ship, to me, this ship's role in life is it's a very durable opponent and vessel to sail. Now, artillery. This is a strength of Warspite, but also its most prominent weakness. And there's two reasons why. But let's just talk about the main battery. You have 4x2 381mm guns. This is easily the largest caliber at rank 6. No other ship has let's get out of that little view. No other ship has this caliber of guns. Next closest is the Fuso with 356mm. However, it does have way more guns. It has 12 compared to 8 on the Warspite. But these guns pack a serious punch, and in addition to those, you have a secondary armament of 4x2 102mm guns, which, you know, aren't a particularly large caliber, but then you also have 8x1 152mm guns. So each side of the ship is armed with 4 152mm guns, which is a respectable secondary armament for a rank 6 warship. AA guns, you have 11x1 20mm anti-aircraft guns with a range of 2.1 kilometers. Basically self-defense. Most of the AAA power on the Warspite is in self-defense. You have 4x8 40mm cannons with 2.5 kilometer range, and then you have those same 4x2 102mm guns, which act as sort of dual purpose and have a range of 5 kilometers. So, let's take stock of all that. The big thing to take away from it, the Warspite packs a serious punch with these main guns, right? 2 rounds a minute is respectable. The biggest weakness is that 180-degree turn time of 72.0 seconds. Basically, if a ship gets too close to you, you just simply won't be able to keep up just by rotating the guns. And if your guns are pointing the wrong way, it's more efficient to spin the whole ship around than it is to turn the turrets. It's incredibly slow. Maximum dispersion, 219 meters, and that's at its longest range. Maximum HE shell damage, 4,600 damage, and a 34% chance to cause fire with the HE shell. Now the AP shell has a maximum damage of 11,400, and the firing range of the main battery is 16.3 kilometers, which means it's not 16.3 kilometers when this ship was first put in before American battleships made their appearance was considered extremely short for a rank 6 battleship. The Fuso can manage much farther. But with the introduction of American battleships, it's sort of become clear that that's the Japanese battleships' thing, is that they have very long ranges until later tiers when everyone else kind of catches up. But 16.3 kilometers, is that what I said? Probably. Yeah, 16.3 kilometers. That's perfectly adequate. And this is one reason why. Surface detectability range. This is how far away the enemy needs to be to see you on its own. 14.2 kilometers. In theory, if it's a 1v1, you'll be able to fire your guns before the enemy sees you. And they may not, I mean, they'll probably see you when you first fire your guns, or else they'll know exactly where you are, but that's a serious advantage. Air detectability range, 11.4 kilometers an hour. That's how close a plane has to get to detect you. So, Warspite can actually be kind of a sneaky ship. Now, most of the time, everyone's spotted because of planes and destroyers and scouting and things like that. But it's an interesting thing that the maximum range of the guns is greater than its detectability range. So in theory, you can hit things that can't see you. And that has happened. So I talked about how the main battery has this horrible turn time. Well, how do you get around that? Because usually you can min-max things and make things better. There are upgrades you can get for this ship. Alright, and these are the upgrades I've chosen. Now, some of them are subject to change. Like for this one, I chose main battery modification 1. Primarily because I didn't really care for the others. I might go back and change it. But this just ensures that my turrets are never destroyed. I mean, I've never had a turret destroyed on Warspite, but it just won't happen with this modification, just due to the armor and in addition to this. Now, the upgrade you really want to get on this ship, in addition to the other two, but this is very important, is plus 20% to secondary battery maximum firing range and increased secondary battery firing accuracy. The thing is that if someone gets close to your ship, it's unlikely you'll be able to keep the guns trained on them. They're likely too fast, right? Especially a destroyer. Destroyers can actually circle your ship because it's just simply too easy for them. They're too fast for your guns to keep up with. So, but your guns, your 152mm secondaries, have a base range of 5.0 kilometers. Well, with this upgrade, we increase it by 20%. Okay, that's pretty good, right? What's 20% of 5? That's 6 kilometers. That'd be an additional kilometer. So now we're up to 6 kilometers. That's pretty cool. And then there's a skill in your commander thing where you can increase that again by 20%. So that's pretty cool. Now your secondary guns are shooting out to ranges of about 7 kilometers, which means that those ships that really want to circle you are really going to struggle. Destroyers are going to get eaten up by these guns because they're basically the same caliber guns that the cruisers have. So, and there's 4 of them per side, and they're just going to be hammering away on those ships that get close to you. I've won plenty of engagements because I got to within 7 kilometers. Obviously once I had the perk unlocked, I got to within 7 kilometers and just my secondaries lit them up and kept them on fire while I was firing AP shells from the main guns and just obliterated them. So the way you get around this thing having really slow turret traverse is upgrading the range of your secondaries, because doing the upgrades to reduce turn time, which there are, and they are like, you know, they're like base amounts, and they really just don't make a big enough difference for it to matter, right? 72 seconds, it's almost like it's past the point of no return. You know, there's not much you can do with that. So upgrading your kind of automatic secondary batteries makes it matter a lot less, and the turn time of the guns usually hasn't been what's killed me. It's usually been, you know, my mistakes, like driving into torpedoes or things like that. Which brings me to the next 2 skills. Damage control system. This is one that all battleships really need. Minus 3% chance of flooding and minus 5% chance of fire. That means a lot because now that cruisers and destroyers kind of struggle to penetrate battleships, now that armor's been implemented in the way it has, basically means that they fire HE a lot. Well, firing HE means you're going to be on fire a lot, so having a reduced chance of being set on fire is really, really good. And then the final upgrade I got is minus 20% rudder shift time. Basically the reasoning is that this ship, in terms of maneuverability, speed is average for ships at this tier, or rank 6 battleships. Turning circle radius, this is about 100 meters less, 110 meters less than the New Mexico, and about 170, I believe, less than the Fuso. This has the smallest turning circle of rank 6 battleships. Rudder shift time of 18.5 seconds. It means that when the rudder is being moved, it really bites the water and turns this thing. So reducing that basically gives you very good maneuverability and ability to change course very quick. A downside and also a benefit of this is that you bleed a lot of speed. You bleed tons of speed when you turn, which I've used to my advantage to avoid torpedoes. Basically shut down the engines and turn, and all the torpedoes can miss. You know, or I can turn into them and avoid most of them, maybe only take 1 torpedo hit rather than taking 3 or maybe even 4. So that is a very good feature about this thing, is that it can turn relatively on a dime, which is nice. So when you package all this up, what are you getting? I guess as a quick overview before we get into the replays, you're getting middle of the road health, right? Which 53,000, that's plenty in a rank 6 battleship. It's less than the max, but you have the armor that you need to really make that effectively more. You get lots of bounces in this ship, or at least I have, because you can do things like kind of angle the armor like this and bring all your guns to bear while presenting a thicker armor to the opponent. And angling does work, according to what I've seen. If you're flat on, you're more likely to be penetrated than if you're like this, just like in tanks. Upgrading your secondaries is critical because it allows you to, I guess, keep people at bay, keep them outside of maybe 6 or 7 kilometers. And if they close to within that, they're going to get wasted. That's just how it is. A lot of destroyers are going to have second thoughts about coming close to Warspite simply because they're just going to get obliterated by all the secondaries. And if the main guns even tickle them, they'll explode. So, not good. Well, good for Warspite, not good for destroyers. AAA armament, it's basically self-defense, and to me, it's been mediocre. It's not bad, it's certainly better than others, but it's not like you're going to be shooting down hordes of planes. You'll usually get a few. If a squadron flies over you, I think you don't have quite enough to make them disperse and have a less accurate sort of bombing run, whether it's dive bombers or torpedoes. But you have enough where if there's one other ship there, the squadron's going to be leaving in tatters, right? It's almost like you're almost there. You just need like a little bit more, like another battleship next to you, just shoot down the entire squadron. So AA armament is fine. They won't get away scot-free. Maneuverability is where the ship really shines. In addition to the armor and the health, the speed is, mediocre, but the turning radius is really, really good. And if you upgrade the rudder shift time, this thing turns like a cruiser. It's really nice. And you can lose a lot of speed, and you can dodge things really well. Dodging is something you can pull off from this ship. And bouncing due to changing armor surface is another thing you can really pull off. Surface detectability, 14.2 kilometers. You can basically shoot farther than you can be detected on a 1v1. So, something to keep in mind. But without further ado, let's get into the replay, shall we? So here we are in the first replay of the Warspite review. And as you can see, both of the replays I'm going to show are on their most recent patch, if I'm not mistaken. This one definitely is. Pretty sure the next one is too. I can't be sure. But this is a rank 6 game. I don't believe there's any rank 7s in here, so top tier, which is always nice. And I just learned another thing that Warspite has is a scout plane, which is pretty useful. It helps you see around corners almost and detect enemy destroyers. Now, my goal on this replay was I've spawned sort of on the southern part, so I decided I'm going to support a cruiser and a couple destroyers in trying to take the A cap. So I'm going to start long-range bombardment of some cruiser targets and try and get some hits. But at this range on fast-moving targets, hitting anything is pretty difficult. And something in World of Warships you should always keep in mind is never stop. But here I'm slowing down, and the reason is that I'm pretty safe from just about everything, and there's not a tremendous reason why I shouldn't, just kind of hang out. And notice the health that guy's on, 238 I think. And of course it wouldn't be right if we didn't overkill him by like a couple thousand. A Citadel penetration usually equates to about in excess of 10,000 damage. We Citadel penetrated him for 238 because that was his maximum health, so definitely a little bit of overkill there. Now, a smoke screen's been laid by our destroyers, which is helpful for me, but kind of disadvantaged because I'm at a pretty decent range to be engaging targets, and I'm really under no threat. But I'm going to need to start moving forward because part of my thoughts on heavily armored battleships like Warspite is that with proper support, they should be leading the way. Ideally, if there's 1 or 2 cruisers with a ship like this, it should move forward, and it should take hits and be sort of the sponge that takes all the damage for the cruisers who dish out the damage. back to the enemy and like set them on fire and be just really, really annoying. So I feel like that's kind of cruisers' job nowadays, just set everybody on fire and be super, super annoying. But gonna try and land some shots on him. Oh, got 2. So that's pretty good. Something else I've noticed that it's probably one of the reasons why I like Warspite so much is that my global accuracy, I think, is about 38%, maybe less. With Warspite, it's closer to 50. I definitely hit more shots with this ship. Take a little bit of damage, some plunging fire from that cruiser out there, but I'm not tremendously concerned. Notice how my rear batteries are still turning, but my forward batteries are still basically facing forward. It's kind of a trick where you can almost split your batteries so that here go the secondaries, so that they you can shoot 2 targets at once. Now, notice my main battery misses, which is a little unfortunate, but thanks to previous hits and he's on such low health, my secondaries actually destroy him. Which means he doesn't get any torpedoes off at me and saves me a lot of pain. And there you go, you saw a bounce off the conning tower there. Here's what looks to be a Cleveland. My first 2 batteries, or my rear 2 batteries, number 3 and number 4, are already facing that way, so I don't have to turn them at all. Meanwhile, my number 1 and number 2 turret are turning around to, oop, those are torpedoes. And my secondaries just opened up on, I believe, another destroyer. Yep, he's over there in the smoke. I'm focusing my main batteries on this Cleveland because he's a little bit of a threat to me. You saw how quickly we turned and bled all that speed. That was pretty nice. Don't worry, more fancy sailing to come. But now we're just hammering this guy. And I believe I was trying to tell my secondaries, shoot the ship. They're going to do it anyway. But this is what the secondaries are for, especially against like cruisers where their rate of fire is their big advantage. I can very easily negate that by, 1, Citadel penetrating them, but also having my secondaries lay out pain as well. And that's exactly what happened. There's another destroyer over there. There were a lot of destroyers in this game, which is why I was so standoffish in the beginning, because I really didn't want to run face first into any destroyers. I've had plenty of game be ended, no matter what ship I'm in, by a destroyer sneaking around the corner. But one advice I have for when you know there's destroyers in the area is keep your bow facing them. So that way you can easily react either way and hopefully avoid their torpedoes. You either want to be facing them or turning away or running away from them, because you're basically every cruiser, every battleship is going to beat a destroyer in just a pure gunnery duel. You know, their destroyers just don't have the primary armament to really beat you down. If a destroyer sits within secondary battery range of a battleship, it will be destroyed. If it sits, you know, at medium range against a cruiser, it will be destroyed because they can dodge the torpedoes and such. But in terms of this game, where do we stand? We have about half as many tickets, and the caps are pretty even. We own A, whereas they're trying to own the other 2. But we are losing ships. There's a lot of attrition, and you lose points when you lose ships. So my goal here was to find this destroyer, destroy him, because, you know, that's what you do to destroyers. You're going to have to take some fancy shooting here to hit him. And then turn my guns inward and start hammering the guys who my team are already shooting at. Because I'm actually kind of out here. But this portion of the replay more speaks to the maneuverability of this ship, less so about the gun performance. I'm launching my scout plane, primarily because I really need to see where this destroyer is. I need to know where to expect torpedoes from. Because if I get surprised by torpedoes, it's very likely that those torpedoes will be fatal. And also, there's an enemy carrier in the mix. And he's certainly going to be launching planes against me because I am sailing into his backfield. So the destroyer was spotted, and I kind of have a decision here. I decide to keep sailing straight. Oh no. This is what I thought I was going to do. I'm going to turn hard starboard. 1, to try and avoid the bombs. But also because I don't want to give this destroyer the opportunity to sail around me. There he is. Can we land some hits on him? I've switched to HE because hopefully these hits will destroy critical components of his ship. Now, the carrier is launching plenty of torpedo bombers and such at me, but that squadron really didn't do a lot on that run. I think they're lining up for another go. And this second pass is really going to cost him a little bit of damage on these planes. Got 2, and only... Look at that spread. That's so bad. So bad spread. I am going to take one of these at least, just because of that weird crisscross that just happened. But only one. Didn't do much damage, and I didn't have any flooding or anything caused, so it's all good. My damage repair ability is actually up now. So if I do take some torpedo hits, I might be able to survive flooding simply by popping that and kind of negating its effect. And I think the damage repair ability actually heals faster than the flooding, but the flooding is more persistent, so it ends up costing you more health, but it gets mitigated by the healing, which is nice. Now this destroyer is over here, and I need to find him. Based on how the smoke trail is going, I'm pretty sure he's off to my port. Or not my port, I'm sorry, I mixed up starboard and port. I pulled a hard turn to port, and now he's off to my starboard. The turn before that I said was starboard. Oh, those are torpedoes. Those are surprising me. I'm going to take some damage here. Take 1, 2, but I didn't take the third one, and the second wave of torpedoes misses. Now my damage repair ability is almost up, so this flooding won't be an issue forever. However, I do need to wait to see if these bombers set me on fire. Because if they set me on fire, then I go ahead and use it just because I don't think they're actually going for me. Some more torpedoes. It gives me an indication of where he is, and here I have to make a decision. Do I go for the carrier, or do I go for the destroyer? Now, I'm ultimately going to decide that the destroyer is the most dangerous ship to me. And the carrier, once I dodge these planes, is going to be a sitting duck for me. So I'm pulling the hard turn to starboard, and I'm going to try and bring my guns to bear on this destroyer and sail away from the incoming torpedoes. Now, this wouldn't be possible in other battleships. Those bombers missed, which was very useful. Incoming torpedoes. My goal here is I want one to miss. So I have an idea of where they're coming from, so I'm just turning the ship, and you can see me goosing the rudder because I have an idea of how I need to dodge them. I only can take one, ideally. And only one. I thought that was pretty good for not even looking. One hit from that, and now I'm closing the distance with this guy, and he's just launched a spread of torpedoes, so I need to try and outrun these. Ooh, something that's not possible in other warships, and my secondaries eat him up. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I like that. That's the power of these secondaries. That whole time while I was maneuvering and trying to dodge torpedoes, my secondaries were just lighting him up, and they ultimately are what sunk him. And now, what's happened in the meantime is we actually have a incredibly firm control over this game. This game is won. We have a ridiculous number of tickets. They only have one carrier left, and we have all the cap zones. So that's nice. Hopefully I don't burn to death, but I won't. My damage repair ability will be up in less than 10 seconds, and should be able to put out this fire. I think the fire might go out by itself anyway. Go ahead and use the damage repair ability, and I'm going to get back up to about 33rd health, which will be pretty good. It'll certainly be enough to survive another salvo of whatever he throws at me. But this replay was primarily to demonstrate the types of things you can pull off with Warspite in terms of maneuverability. A Fuso, for example, would have been dead there. I don't think a Fuso would have survived because that carrier would have hit it with all those torpedoes. The turning circle is just too big. New Mexico, turning circle is larger. I think you would have taken maybe a couple more, which could have been the difference between life and death because the New Mexico has less health. Now, granted, it's only 700 less, but still less. And we don't get to find out what happens with those torpedoes. The game ends. But is a very healthy result in the Warspite. Shot down 6 enemy planes and sunk 4 ships, which puts me squarely second place because we had a destroyer have a very good game. And we did a fair amount of damage. This replay was less about damage, more about the type of fancy sailing you can pull off in this machine. So let's move on to the next replay, shall we? So remember how I posted that video the other day, piloting the idea of if I forgot to mute the background sound in a game, and I still want to share the game, could I put in smooth jazz and make it up for it? Well, this was the replay that I was really, I guess, piloting that for. Unfortunately, this was a really good game, and it showed some power of the Warspite, and I really wanted to show it, but obviously the sound was an issue, and I couldn't show it as it was. Just couldn't do it. So instead, I thought, how about I throw in, let's try the jazz thing. Let's see what they think about that. So we're going to listen to the same jazz track. It's about a 2.5 minute jazz track, just over and over, just because it's the chillest one I could find. But what's happening in this battle is, this is the hotspot map. I think it's called hotspot. Basically, the teams spawn in split locations. I don't know how I feel about that. This is also an earlier replay than the previous one because I hadn't respect my captain yet. I have the "Have I Been Detected" icon displayed, and that really doesn't mean a lot. I've decided that it's not as valuable as Sixth Sense was in World of Tanks, where if you could get Sixth Sense, you did, and I mean every tank could, so every tank got Sixth Sense. In World of Warships, if you're in a cruiser, if you're in a battleship, assume you've been spotted. If you're in a carrier, it really doesn't matter. So the only ships that really need to get it are destroyers. So if you're in a destroyer, you should definitely get this "Have I Been Detected" icon, because it's very useful for what they need to do and be sneaky and stuff like that. So what's happening in this battle is that the teams are split at the beginning, right? So I'm sailing down south. The goal is that I want to come around these islands and annihilate the southern portion of their force, and then turn north and meet the rest of my team in the cap circle. And we're met with quite the salvo. That was definitely a healthy hit. But we can definitely return fire, and return fire we shall. My second turrets are still turning to start shooting, but that was a very healthy damage hit. And fire number 3 and number 4, there they go. Gaboosh. A little bit more damage. First salvo was way better. But now I'm going to have this sort of alternating fire thing, which can be pretty good. It allows you to adjust your fire pretty well. And here comes double salvo. Ouch, ouch, ouch. One of my turrets was damaged, but I'm able to repair it. I'm going to need to use my damage repair ability. There it goes. But 2 American battleships, they have lots of guns. I probably wasn't going to win that engagement if they kept shooting at me the way they were. But now it's a situation where it's only one of them. I like my chances. Wasn't a particularly good shot. You could see the shell bounce off the side of his armor. This is sort of an awkward way to shoot at a battleship, but he's turning, which is going to give me the opportunity to plant some shots into his side. And he's burning and stuff, and you see the secondary batteries starting to open up. I like my secondary batteries versus his, and his salvo misses, which gives me the opportunity to keep laying into him. And here comes the second salvo. Well, not quite. There goes one of his turrets, because one of my turrets is off now. Set on fire by the secondaries, so that's always nice. And the first 2 turrets are almost reloaded. There they go, in addition to the third turret, and blammo, he's dead, which is nice. Now here comes a pesky destroyer. Now the secondaries are going to have to do work. Oh, actually he's out there. We don't have to worry that much about him. Thought he was much closer than he was. But now we need to turn north. We need to get into the cap circle and start really mixing it up with some of these battleships and cruisers that are over here. Help out our friend the Cleveland over there. 3 turrets are about to become ready to fire, and there they go. See what type of damage we can get out of that. Ooh, that's unfortunate. We missed all of them. Didn't say I was a good shot yet. I get better than average accuracy, better than normal accuracy in this ship, but it doesn't mean I always hit the target. But in this situation, I basically need to keep my ship's guns firing. They need to be firing every chance they get, and just hammering these guys down, because that's my role as a battleship in this situation. It's just to fire, fire, fire. There goes a full salvo, full broadside, and that looked like it hurt a bit. 7 hits of 8 shots fired. Pretty good accuracy. And we're just going to start turning the ship because I'm expecting return fire. So I want to try and angle my armor, and I also want to go on the inside of this headland there. And you can see my secondaries opening up on that destroyer there, who's on low health, so he's not likely to do very well. And ooh, that was a healthy hit, but I did take less damage than last time, and I think that's because of the angling. Not a particularly good shots there. I'm telling my secondaries to focus on the battleship, primarily because I'm not tremendously worried about the destroyer. And there he goes. Now I'm going to switch him to the destroyer, because the battleship is on such low health. I didn't want to get him to get another salvo off, and fortunately he didn't. But now it's just this destroyer. My main guns are lined up. Oop, I fired them, but the secondaries had already done their work. And I'm taking a lot of damage from some of these battleships. Not usually going to take this much damage, but oop, that's a bunch of torpedoes. Are they going to arm? Nope, they didn't arm in time. And we're not going to send them home scot-free. We got one of the planes, it looks like. But now this battleship, I'm at about half health, but I stand a pretty good chance here. One, because he's heavily damaged as well. And there go my secondaries starting to open up. They're not very accurate, are they? First salvo goes in. Solid. Not very much damage. There's a secondary just lit him on fire. Here comes his salvo. There goes mine. And we're going to just start trading hits like this. It's about another minute for my damage repair, and enemy destroyer, no, allied destroyer rather, just put down the torpedo spread, and I'm not even going to bother to fire this salvo. He's toast. Incoming bombs, though, that's a little bit of an issue. Get set on fire, immediately put them out, which, you know, can sometimes be a problem, because what if you get set on fire again? It's not a great situation. But I almost have my damage repair ability back, which will be critical in surviving the next engagement, because this is turning into a very close game. And here come the second set of bombers. You can see my AAA lighting up, and oof, we're set on fire again, which is a little bit of an issue. We're going to need to get that damage repair ability up so that we can kind of mitigate that burn damage, because it's not a little fire. There's a lot of my ship that's on fire. Trying to hit that Cleveland and put him out, but didn't hit him with enough. Use the damage repair ability to save the ship, and I'm actually going to start out healing the fire, and hopefully the fire will go out by the time my healing's done, so that I can at least survive. But this is an example of where having that little detected sign above my ship really doesn't matter at all. And there's an enemy Fuso. Now, I'm not usually scared of Fusos, but at this amount of health, I'm scared of just about every ship. You know? And ooh, that was a whopping hit. 7 hits, did a lot of damage with that salvo. But I'm going to need to dodge his. He's most likely going to fire one at me. And, oof, there goes one of his ranging shots. Ooh, here it comes. Oof. Got out of that one just fine, but my 2 rear guns can fire in reverse, so let's give him a little bit in return. But I want to kind of get away from him. I'm on too low health. I need to really be the secondary target, and there we go. I got a high caliber. That's always nice. Basically the same award as it is in World of Tanks. Do a ton of damage. I think in this battle I did about 120,000 damage, which is the most I've done in the Warspite. And that's just a testament to how powerful the armament is on this ship. But notice how I'm paying a lot of attention to what's behind me and not the little icons that are to my the right part of my targeting site there. Fuso got destroyed. That's always nice. What that's telling me is that there's planes inbound, and guess what they are? Torpedo bombers. It's not the best. And incoming dive bombers, and I'm on very low health with... I do have my repair ability, but I don't have much in the way of health recovery. So I'm going to start knocking planes out of the sky. They miss their bombs, which is critical. But I'm going to notice very shortly, wait for it, that there's enemy torpedo bombers. And they're about to put fish in the water. And I'm going to try and get a salvo off on this Cleveland. And that's really what I was paying attention to. And I should have been paying attention to the spread of torpedoes that is currently, if I'm not mistaken, on their way. Missed that salvo. That's unfortunate. Launch my scout plane because I'm still oblivious. Using my damage repair, but it's not going to be... There goes the AAA. They're getting close. And I start turning, and oh, there's 3 of them. It's only going to take 2. Bam, bam. And I get sunk. But let's skip forward to the battle results screen, shall we? We would go on to win the battle, and would be the first high caliber I've scored. I think this was the first high caliber I had scored in general, but I think I got one on a New Mexico game. But we did lots of damage, shot down a fair few planes, sunk a few ships, and got first on the team, which was always really nice. And that's... The first replay was a testament to maneuverability. This replay was a testament to the sheer gun power of this ship. You're able to survive a fair number of engagements you normally can't, while also dishing out serious hurt. For every point of damage to those New Mexicos did to me, I think they were New Mexicos, I dished it right back out, and ultimately caused a lot of damage to them in return. So, without further ado, let's move on to the final opinion, shall we? Final opinion time. What do I think of HMS Warspite? I think HMS Warspite is... I hesitate to say it's the ship, basically the premium ship to buy. Primarily because, I mean, this is closed beta. We don't know exactly what's going to happen when this game goes to open, but I don't think Warspite's going to be changing that much. Another reason I hesitate is because the main battery turning time, well, I haven't found it to be a problem. I've also played a lot of battleships. So I've kind of gotten used to the idea of having to predetermine where my guns need to be pointing. And I just do it a little earlier when Warspite. Someone who's new to the game will struggle with this just because the guns aren't going to keep up. Like, for example, if you start pulling a turn, the guns aren't going to keep up with you. And you're going to have to wait once you finish your turn for the guns to catch up. So, for that reason, it's difficult to recommend because the main battery is the source of most of your damage. Like, I mean, 90% of it probably. So, with that kind of weakness to the main battery, it's going to be... Some people are going to find this very difficult. Personally, I don't think it's much of an issue because you can work around it. So, and I feel like every premium ship should have some kind of drawback. Like the Atlanta, for example, the rank 7 American cruiser. It has the drawback where, well, the issue is that the main turrets get knocked out just all day long, and it's really fragile. So, even though you can manage a super huge rate of fire, and you have so many guns, they get knocked out every time you get hit. So, like, what good do they do? Warspite, to me, its drawback is the least significant of the group, of the premium ships available. So, if you're looking for a rank 6 premium to train your British crews eventually when they get here, Warspite is the recommendation. And even just to grind out like credits and things like that, Warspite is to me has been by far the best ship. I think while I've been playing it, I've achieved somewhere between a 70 and 80% win rate with it. And I think my overall win rate is something like 56%. But in this ship, I've just been hammering opponents and doing really, really well. And having lots and lots of fun. This is a really fun ship for me, mainly because I like the battleships. But, you know, if you have the extra coin laying around and you want to buy a rank 6 premium, this is a pretty good one to get. So, I really like it. I think it's a great ship, and that'll be my opinion on it until future when something else is brought in. But when British ships finally make their way into the game, this will be a very useful tool to have on your tool belt. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it was helpful. I hope maybe it helps you make decisions in regards to this ship. And this is the first ship review I've done, and you can kind of consider it a pilot episode. So feel free to leave feedback and comments about how I did, or things I could change or things I could add, because I definitely would like to hear feedback so I can maybe optimize this format specifically for World of Warships, because I'm bringing it basically straight out of the box from War Thunder, and there's differences. So hopefully we can find a way to reconcile those differences and bring it together and make reviews that are really helpful. So thanks for watching. I've been Corny Swiss. I'll see you next time.